And finally, our last presenter is Cheri.Nolan from the Office of Justice Programs.
Thanks, and I'll talk fast because I know all of us are really anxious to hear questions from the audience. We see actually some things that are working out there, and key to that is reentry, transition planning that has got to start behind the walls of the institution before someone is released. Right now, we are funding 69 prototypical reentry sites in every state, and also the District of Columbia in the Virgin Islands. If you're not aware of what's happening in your own state, through your State Department of Corrections, under the Serious and Violent Offender Reentry Initiative, I encourage you to get involved and to find out what is happening. Some states are just handling adult populations of serious and violent offenders. Others are juveniles, some are combinations of adult and juveniles. What we asked through our prototypical program was for the State Department of Corrections to identify the jurisdiction within their state that had the greatest percentage of serious and violent offenders returning to that community, as Jeremy laid out in the map of Chicago. We asked them to identify resources that were currently in place through state-funded agencies and money that was available from the federal government, and then work with that local jurisdiction in helping to build transition plans for those offenders that were going to be released back into that community. We are starting, that money has been out in the communities for about a year and a half now. What we're seeing some good things, and we're seeing some things that are causing a little bit of concern, and I'd like to share with them today so that when you're talking to your state departments of corrections about the Serious and Violent Offender Reentry Initiative, some of these questions. We're seeing some creaming going on. How unusual that this would be happening. Everybody wants to do the easiest. Those that want to, that will self-volunteer to be part of this transition plan. We want state departments of corrections to be fully assessing who is going to be coming out through the various assessment tools that are available to the states, to be able to determine what their likelihood of recidivism is going to be. Not just the crimes that have been committed, but what, through various assessment instruments, can determine what they might do in the future. Really target those that are going to pose the greatest risk to public safety should they recidivate. We are also seeing a disconnect between the state agencies and the local law enforcement. And it's clearly, and it has to be a partnership at the local level, not just among the community service agencies and those social service providers, but it has got to be a strong partnership with local law enforcement. And that's another area that we're seeing is a fairly weak link in the various prisoner reentry programs that we have out there. And we're also seeing not a strong use of the assessment tools that I have talked about. We're seeing that that assessments are being done at the front end when someone comes into an institution, but in many cases that assessment tool is not following that offender out as the transition plans are being put into place. So these are all areas that we're taking a look at, and we'll probably be doing kind of a mid-course correction to make sure that these things all come together. We see a tremendous opportunity for leadership from governors' offices around this issue. The bully pulpit that is offered that the governor's offices have, I think, can make a tremendous impact on this returning population and bringing public attention to this issue as a public safety initiative. We're finding in Washington that it's great to talk about jobs and housing, but also it raises the next question of, well, why are the housing programs and the job programs going to those people that have committed horrible crimes? Why aren't they going to average law-abiding folks? So those are the kind of the political questions that you're going to have to be facing as you go back to your governors with reentry plans. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity for long-term systemic change in this country around the criminal justice system and how we handle that returning population. So with that, I've cut my remarks very short, but with that, I'm really anxious to see what questions you all have. Thanks.
Thank you,